Hello students, today we will start standard 7th physics chapter number 4 heat of NCERT. Now what is the meaning of heat? Heat, it is a form of energy, okay, that is transferred from one body to the other body. Now we have already experienced heat. Now we will see two seasons, that is winter and summer. Winter we use animal fibers, that is the clothes which is made up from sheep. We wear woolen clothes. Why we wear woolen clothes? To protect from cold. To protect from cold we wear woolen clothes, that is made up from animal fibers, that is sheep. In summer we use cotton clothes. We wear cotton clothes which is made up of from plant fibers to protect from heat, to protect from sun rays. So we wear cotton clothes in summer. So how do we experience? We experience that this is winter, this is summer with the help of temperature. If the temperature is cold, we will obviously feel cold, and if the temperature is hot, we will feel hot in our body. So this is called sense of touch. So sense of touch can be experienced through our body. So a degree of hotness and coldness, we feel sense of touch. If there is a warm water, if we put hand, so obviously with the help of the sense we will feel that that water is warm, that water is hot. If we compare a lukewarm water and a more hot water, so we can compare that which one will be hotter. The water which is more, the temperature which is more hot, it will be more warm as compared to the lukewarm water. Same way for the cold water also. A chilled water, a cold water and a ice chilled water. If you want to compare, ice chilled water will be more cold by the degree of sense of touch. Just touching it, we can able to see that whether that temperature is hot or whether that temperature is cold. Okay. Now a reliable measure of the hotness of an object is it's called temperature. It is the temperature. We call a reliable touch, a reliable degree, a sense of touch, whether to measure any hotness of an object, whether that object is hot or cold, we called it as a temperature. So temperature is to measure the hotness of any particular body. Now how to measure the temperature, we can see in the next. Now let us see how to measure the temperature. Temperature is measured by a device called thermometer. To measure the hotness, to measure the temperature of our body, we use thermometer. There are two types of thermometer, that is one will be a clinical thermometer and the second one will be a laboratory thermometer. First we will see a clinical thermometer. Now how to measure a temperature? So temperature can be measured of our body. If you want to measure our body temperature, that means if we have a fever, and if we want to measure our body temperature, so generally we use a thermometer which is called a clinical thermometer. Nowadays at our home we have this type of thermometers. We are mostly using a digital thermometer. If you just insert in the mouth, you can get down the directly reading. But here we are talking about the clinical thermometer in which mercury is being used. Now how it is made? So to measure first our body temperature, we used a clinical thermometer. Now how it is made up of? Let us see the construction. So this clinical thermometer, it consists of a long, narrow, uniform glass tube. I have drawn a picture over here. So this tube, it will be made up of glass and it will be uniform. Glass tube, it has a bulb at one end. Now there is a bulb over here and this bulb will contain mercury. Now if you want to see a mercury, it will be a shining thread. Here you can see a shining thread in the, that is of mercury. If you can't see, you can have to tilt that thermometer a little bit. So you will see this mercury, a shining thread. So shining thread is called a mercury. Actually mercury is a poisonous thing, toxic substance. So you should take care while using this type of thermometer. So it is made up of a long narrow tube, uniform glass tube. It is made up of glass tube, and here at one side there is a bulb which contains mercuries and the readings are given over there. At one side it is in degrees Celsius and other side it is written in Fahrenheit. Now how to take the readings we will see. Now let us see how to read a thermometer. Now as I told you that at one side it is marked in degrees Celsius and at one side it is marked in Fahrenheit scale. Now India has adopted the degrees Celsius. Now the temperature range in degrees Celsius it ranges from 35 degrees Celsius to 42 degrees Celsius. So in normally thermometer you will see that if you see a mercury thermometer, both the ranges will be written in the thermometer. One side it will be a degree Celsius which will be from 35 to 42 degrees Celsius and other side it is written from 94 to 108 degree Fahrenheit. Now the second range, that is in Fahrenheit scale, the range is from 94 degree Fahrenheit to 108 degree Fahrenheit. Now how to take the readings? Now let us see for degree Celsius. Here is 35, here is 36. So there are small 10 divisions. So if you have a fever, suppose you have a 35.6 degree, 35.6. So you will count the markings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it will be counted as 35.6 degree Celsius. If you have a fever of 37.7 degree Celsius, so bigger markings 35, 36, 37 and after 37 you have to count 7 markings. So it will become 37.7 degree Celsius. Now let us see how to calculate, how to take the readings. First of all we have to see the temperature difference between the two bigger marks. So there are the two bigger marks which are given. So you have to find out the temperature difference. What is the temperature difference between these two marks? Afterwards what we will do, we will note down the smaller markers. We will see the smaller markings between these two bigger marks. So how many small markings are given over there? So suppose bigger marks reads degree, 1 degree. If bigger mark is 1 degree and there are 5 divisions in it. So if you want to calculate, therefore one small division will become 1 upon 5 is equal to 0.2 degree Celsius. So here is 94, 96. So here one marking will be of 0.2 degree Celsius. So if you want to calculate in Fahrenheit, suppose you have the fever 96.4, 96.6, then 96.8, then 98, then 98.2, 98.4, 98.6. This way 0.2 difference we will take. So this way we can take the temperature. In the clinical, we can read the temperature in the clinical thermometer. Now let us see how to use a clinical thermometer. Now when you are using a clinical thermometer, first of all you have to wash the thermometer with an antiseptic solution. You have to use antiseptic solution. Why we are using an antiseptic solution? Because when we are inserting in, before inserting in our mouth, suppose if a patient, if this thermometer has been inserted in other patient's mouth, then whatever the microorganism, whatever the germs are there, it will be left over. So to make infection free, to make germ free, we are dipping it in the antiseptic solution. It is compulsory to wash it under an antiseptic solution. Afterwards what we have to do? The second step, hold it firmly and give it few jerks, which will bring the level of the mercury down. Because when we give a jerk, already when we have used in the previous patient's mouth, so what will happen? The reading will be there. And if we use the same thermometer in our mouth, we will not get the perfect reading. So first of all we have to give the jerks like this way, so that level, mercury level, can go below 35. We have to ensure that it should go below 35, otherwise we will not get a perfect reading of the thermometer. So we have to give few jerks to the thermometer to make the level below 35. Afterwards what we have to do? Now place the bulb of the thermometer under your tongue. Now this bulb you have to keep below our tongue, under our tongue for 1 minute. We have to wait for 1 minute. Mostly for adults we use and below the tongue, but for the small infants or small childs, generally we keep it under the armpit. So below our tongue we have to keep this bulb and we have to wait for 1 minute. After 1 minute, take out the thermometer and note down the reading. So what will happen if we had a fever? So that heat will be passed in this, because this mercury actually it is a metal. So when metal is being heated, whenever heat is transferred to this metal will expand, that mercury will expand and that metal will increase, that mercury will increase and we will get the reading. So we have to wait for 1 minute and then we just remove out the thermometer, you will get the body temperature. If we had a fever, so that temperature will be more than 37 degree Celsius. So our normal body temperature, if you want to just now take the temperature, our normal body temperature will range from 37, it will be 37 degree Celsius, and if you want to measure in Fahrenheit, it will be 98.6 degree Fahrenheit. So normal temperature of the human body is 37 degrees Celsius and it is 98.6 degree in Fahrenheit scale, and if you have fever, it will rise to 38, 39 or 99 degree, 100 degree Fahrenheit. So that will be the reading if we had a fever, but our normal body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. So in this way we can take the reading by using a clinical thermometer. Now let us see which precautions we will see when we are using a clinical thermometer. Now first of all, as I told you during the reading of the thermometer, first of all we have to wash the thermometer. So we have to wash the thermometer, clinical thermometer, before and after using with an antiseptic solution. So we have to wash the thermometer before also and after also, so that our infection cannot be transmitted to the other person. So we have to wash it with the antiseptic solution. Then we have to ensure that the temperature while we are taking the reading, it should go below 35 degree. When we are taking our reading, so we have to ensure that it should go below 35. How we can do that? By applying the jerks in the thermometer. Now the next one, when you are taking the reading, when you are observing the reading, when you have removed the thermometer from the tongue and when you want to see the reading, actual reading, so you have to keep that level of the mercury along the line of sight. That means you have to place that thermometer here in front of our eyes, so you will get a perfect reading. You cannot see from cross side. This thermometer should be in parallel, so it should be along the line of sight. Now as this thermometer, I told you that it is made up of a glass tube. So what will happen? It sometimes break. So we have to handle that thermometer with proper care. If it hit against hard object, it can break. So suppose if I am giving a jerk and I am standing behind the wall, and if it hits any hard objects, it will break. If it breaks, so whatever the mercury it will be disposed of everywhere. It will be spread everywhere. So we have to handle this thermometer with proper care while we are doing the jerks. Then don't hold the thermometer by the bulb during reading. So when you are taking a reading, don't hold the thermometer over here, don't keep your hand over here, keep the hand over here and you can take the reading. Otherwise whatever the heat which is present in our hand or whatever the germs, it will directly transmit in the bulb and we will not get the perfect reading. So under these precautions we have to take the reading by using a clinical thermometer. Then and then only we will get a perfect reading of our body temperature. Now let us see laboratory thermometer. Now what is laboratory thermometer? The thermometer which is used in laboratory, that thermometer is called a laboratory thermometer. Now this thermometer is used to measure the temperature of the objects. So here if you want to measure any objects, how much hot that object is, so there we will use a laboratory thermometer, we will not use a mercury thermometer. Now the range of laboratory thermometer is range from -10 degrees Celsius to 110 degrees Celsius. Whereas in clinical thermometer the range was 35 to 42 degrees Celsius. So objects which are more hotter, okay, so we will measure with the help of a laboratory thermometer whose range starts from -10 degrees Celsius to 110 degrees Celsius. This is used to measure the objects of the temperature of the objects. How we can measure? Let us see. Now let us see how to use a laboratory thermometer. Now this laboratory thermometer is made same as of that of a clinical thermometer. It is made up of a glass tube which contains mercury in its bulb. Now when you are taking this reading of a thermometer, we know that you have to measure the hotness of the any substance. You have to take the reading of the any substance. So first of all, what we have to do? First we have to put this laboratory thermometer in the substance in such a way that the bulb should be completely surrounded by the substance. Suppose if you are taking a hot water, so in one beaker you just take a hot water and just dip this thermometer. This bulb should be dipped in the water completely, properly, so that you can get the reading. Then what we have to do? It should not touch the bulb or the bottom or the sides. So we have to ensure that it should not touch the bottom of the container or the side of the container, otherwise it will break. It should be properly dipped. The bulb should be properly parallel in that water with the substance which we are taking. Suppose we are taking a hot water, so it should be dipped properly in the hot water. We should not touch its bottom. That the bulb should not touch its bottom or the sides of the container. Now when we are taking the reading, hold this thermometer vertically. The thermometer should not be tilted. It should be vertically. It should be straight, and note down the level of the mercury. As soon as you just dip that mercury thermometer in the water, so the mercury level will rise up. So you have to remain steady till the mercury level rise, and then you have to take down the reading. So this way you can use the laboratory thermometer. Now what precautions we will see? Let us see in the next one. Now what precautions we will take while using a laboratory thermometer? First of all, it should be kept upright, not tilted. That means it should be kept vertically. While you are taking the reading, that thermometer should be vertically. It should be upright, not tilted. It should not be bent. Otherwise you will not get the reading of that substance. Bulb should be surrounded from all the sides by that substance. While taking the reading, when you are taking the reading of any substance, the bulb, the mercury bulb should be surrounded from all the sides of that particular substance. If it is one side, you will not get the perfect reading, and that bulb should be completely dipped in that substance. Next one, it should be not touch the container. It should not touch, when you are taking the reading, you should not touch the bottom of the container, nor it should touch the sides of the container. You will not get the reading, otherwise there will be a chances of breaking the thermometer. Now in this laboratory thermometer, when you remove, if you want to take the reading, it should be dipped in the substance only. Then you can note down the reading. As soon as you remove the thermometer, laboratory thermometer, immediately the mercury level will drop. Now we had seen the clinical thermometer. In this case, in the clinical thermometer, this was not happening. Why? What was the reason? The mercury level does not fall. When you remove from the tongue, you can get the reading. So what was the difference? So in a clinical thermometer, there is a kink present over here. If you can see the textbook, if you have the textbook, you can see there is a kink present over here, a small kink in the clinical thermometer, which is absent in the laboratory thermometer, which you cannot see in the laboratory thermometer. So what does this kink do? We can call a kink, or we can call a constriction. So this kink prevents the falling or rising of the mercury level. So when you remove from the tongue, you remove from the mouth, you can see the reading. But in this case, kink is not there. So if you remove from this substance, so immediately the mercury level will fall off. So here, because of this kink, the mercury level does not fall or rise. It will remain steady when you remove out from the mouth. But in the case of laboratory thermometer, there is no kink. That's why we have to take the reading when that substance is dipped in the that thermometer is dipped in that particular substance. Only we will get the reading in the laboratory thermometer. So this was one of the difference in laboratory and clinical thermometer. Other difference is the ranges of the temperatures. In this, the temperature range from 35 degree to 42 degrees Celsius, whereas in the laboratory thermometer it ranges from -10 degrees Celsius to 110 degrees Celsius. So these are the two things, and this one is used to measure the temperature of our body, whereas laboratory thermometer is used to measure the temperature of a particular substance. So these are the three differences between the laboratory and the clinical thermometer. The first difference, presence of kink, which is present in clinical thermometer and it is absent in laboratory thermometer. Second difference is the ranges of the temperature. In clinical thermometer, the range starts from 35 degrees to 42 degrees Celsius, whereas in the laboratory thermometer it ranges from -10 degrees Celsius to 110 degrees Celsius. And the third difference is clinical thermometer is used to measure the temperature of our body, whereas laboratory thermometer is used to measure the temperature of a substance. Now let us see transfer of heat. As I told you that heat is a form of energy which is transferred from one body to the other. Now what is this transfer of heat? Heat always flows from a body at a higher temperature to a body at a lower temperature. That's why suppose there is a hot tea, it will change into a cold. Why? Because heat is being released from the tea and it is released in the atmosphere. So it is always flows from a body from the higher temperature to a body at a lower temperature. Now this transfer is called conduction. Conduction of heat in solids. Let us take one example. Suppose this is an aluminum scale. If I heat this aluminum scale from this side, from one end with the help of a candle, so this heat will pass from here, the heat will start flowing at this point and this heat will slowly transfer to the far of this end. So that means from this end this heat will be transferred to the complete aluminum scale or a steel scale. That means the process of transfer of heat from the hot end of a solid object towards the cold end is known as conduction. So this is known as transfer of heat from one hot end to the other cold end, towards the cold end. That process is called conduction of heat. That means heat is transferred from the hotter object to the lower one or to a colder one. Mostly the solid substances are being heated. Example, the vessels which we are utensils which we are using to cook the food, it is being transferred. The transfer of heat takes by the conduction of heat. So from the hotter end it will pass the heat to the other parts of that substance, from the hotter body to the lower body. So this was conduction of heat which occurs in solids. That means heat is transferred from the hot end to the cold end. Now we had seen conduction of heat which occurs in solids. That's why any utensils it heats up easily. Now we will see what is a good conductors of heat and what are the poor conductors of heat. Now good conductors of heat, the materials which allows heat to pass through them easily are called conductors of heat. That means any material, any substance in which heat allows heat pass easily. For example, aluminium, iron or copper. If you have an aluminium vessel, so the heat will transfer very easily from one side to the other side. So this type of materials or this type of substance are called good conductors of heat. That means transfer of heat is easily in it. Transfer of heat is possible. Now let us see what are insulators, or we can say poor conductors of heat. The materials which do not allow heat to pass through them easily are called poor conductors or insulators. That means examples are plastic, wood, air, water. Here heat will not allow to pass easily. These objects will not allow the heat to pass directly or easily. This type of conductors are called poor conductors or insulators. Examples, plastic. If you take a plastic, heat will not transfer easily. Wood, air or water. Now here air and water, these are all poor conductors of heat. Then how does the heat will transfer in air and water? So there is another method in which air and water the heat can be transferred. It is called convection of heat. It occurs in the liquid and gaseous substance. Now let us see the second transfer of heat, mode of transfer of heat is convection of heat. As we know that conduction of heat always occurs in solids. In case of liquid and gases, there is convection of heat. The transfer of heat occurs through convection of heat. On a heating vessel containing water, suppose you take a vessel and you just pour a water in it, and that water which is being heated up, that mode of transfer of heat in water is called a convection of heat. One activity is given in the textbook, in that activity we have to take a water in a flask. In that flask you have to put the crystals of potassium permanganate. Actually it is the crystals are in violet in color. So when you apply a flame, when you heat that water, so what will happen, the water, as soon as the water will start heating from the bottom part, that water will rise up, and you can see that water will rise up and the side water of the flask will takes its place. That means this water will be completely heated up. So this process will be continued, and you will see that the complete water will become violet in color. So that activity shows that there is a convection of heat which occurs in liquids. So always in liquids and gaseous, convection of heat occurs. So first the water gets heated up and it will slowly move upwards, and in that place the cold water will be taking its place, and then again it will be heated. It will be heated till the whole process will be completely becomes hot. That method is called convection of heat. Now convection of heat, let us see in the gaseous things. That are the two different phenomena which you will be seeing. There will be a land breeze and sea breeze, in which convection of heat takes place. Now let us see convection of heat. There are two natural phenomena in which convection of heat takes place. These are called land breeze and sea breeze. Now first of all let us see sea breeze. This sea breeze and land breeze occurs in the coastal areas. It can be seen clearly in the coastal areas. Now what happens in the coastal areas? We know that sun gives equal amount of heat energy to the land surface as well as sea water. So land and sea waters equal amount of heat energy is being given from the sun, is taken from the sun. So what happens during the daytime? So during daytime the temperature of the land rises more rapidly as compared to the sea. That means land heat up more faster than the sea. So land and sea are there in coastal areas. So land will be heated more faster as compared to sea. So what will happen when land will heat up? So the air above the land, it will also become hot. The air above the land will also become hot, and this air will become lighter. As this hot air is lighter in weight, in density, it will rise up. It will rise up. So the cooler air from the sea, the air coming from the sea, it will rush towards the land to take its place. So the cooler air which is blowing from the sea, it will take the place of the warm air, and this warm air will again rush up to the sea to complete this cycle. So the cold air will rush to the land and the warm air will rise up, and that warm air will shift towards the sea. So this complete cycle, so the air will continue. So this air which is flowing from the sea, it is called sea breeze. The air which moves from the sea towards the land is called sea breeze. Now let us see the land breeze. Now let us see land breeze. Now what is the land breeze? Now during night time, the land as well as sea water cools down. So at night there is no sun, so the land surface and the sea water will start cooling down. It will cool down. But what will happen? But the temperature of the land falls more rapidly as compared to sea water. That means land will become more cool. Land will become cool faster than the sea. As compared to sea, land will become cooler faster. So what will happen? At night, the temperature of the sea water is more than the land. That means as land is cooling faster than the sea, so obviously sea water will be, the temperature of the sea water will be more. So what will happen? The water above the air above the sea, it will rise up. The warm air will rise up, and at night cool air will start moving from land towards the sea. So that sea water, the air about the sea water will rise up, and the land which is already cooled down, that warm air will rush up towards the sea. So the air which is moving from land towards the sea, that process, that phenomenon is called land breeze. Whereas during the daytime in sea breeze, the air was rushing, the breeze was rushing from sea towards the land. Whereas in the land breeze during night, the air will move from land towards the sea, which is called land breeze. So there is two natural phenomenon, that was sea breeze and land breeze, occurs through the convection of heat. Now let us see the third mode of transfer of heat, that is radiation of heat. Now what is the meaning of radiation? Radiation of heat mostly occurs through the sun. So from the sun heat comes to us by this process is known as radiation. So the sun, the heat which is coming directly from the sun, it reaches to our earth. That process, that method, transfer of heat is called radiation of heat. The clothes become dry. Why? Because of the radiation of the heat. The earth becomes hot. Why? Due to the radiation of heat. For transfer of this heat by this radiation process does not require any medium. So we don't require any medium for this transfer of heat, for this radiation of heat, it does not require any medium. Now for radiation of heat, it does not, transfer of heat takes place in any medium or without any medium, that heat can be transferred. Now according to the radiation, we have to prefer the different types of clothes. Now mostly dark color objects or dark color absorbs more radiation, that means it absorbs more heat as compared to the light colored objects. That's why in summer we wear light color clothes, that means it does not absorb so much of heat. Whereas in winter seasons we wear dark color clothes because that dark color clothes absorb more heat, so we feel warm. We mostly wear woolen clothes in winter, so that wool, actually wool is a poor conductor of heat. So what will happen, that wool, that fibers of the wool will trap the air inside and we will feel warm inside our body. That heat will be absorbed in our body. So in this way we have seen three transfer of heat. First was conduction of heat, which occurs in solids. Convection of heat occurs in liquids and gaseous. And the third one was radiation of heat, which does not require any medium. Hope you have understood all the topics of this chapter number 4, heat. Thank you.